This video is on the Files module or Files panel, possibly the most important module in the entire bunch. This is where you can create, edit, manipulate, and back up the files that make up your websites. And there is a little bit of a difference between the two hosting services that I use here in this example. In this case, we've got this third-party backup and restore application, and in this case, we do not. In this instance, we've got the anonymous FTP where it is not available here. Aside from those two differences, everything else is pretty much exactly the same. We've got the backups and the backup wizard. The backups, if we click on that and take a quick look, you've got a video tutorial here that can go through the process of what I may be skipping over here, but you can download the entire home directory or specific items in the databases, folders, or filters that you may have already created. Likewise, once those are downloaded, if something happens later on, you can always choose that file, upload it, and restore it to the home directory or to the related MySQL database, email folders, or email filters. And we come on back home here. If we look into the backup wizard, this allows us to do pretty much the same thing, only it looks a little bit different. If we click on backup, we can do a full backup or a backup of just the home directory or just the MySQL databases or just the email folders and filters. Now, one thing you want to note here under the full backup, you can only use this to move your account to another server. And I believe it's only a cPanel server. If you're moving it to a hosting account that uses Plesk or some other customized control panel, this isn't going to do you any good. And you should always do regular backups. Let's come on back here. And again, we've got the restore option here, just like we do on the normal backup option here. And under File Manager, and again, we can see here these are both the same on both hosting. And I believe these are pretty well standard no matter what cPanel type setup you have. Now, the File Manager and File Manager Legacy are basically the same thing in essence, only the Legacy, as the name implies, is an older version of the new File Manager. So if you were looking at cPanel, I believe it was in 2009, maybe 2008, you didn't have a Legacy. It was the File Manager then. But if you take a look at this, let's see here, because I don't use the Legacy. Click on that. This is the old look of the File Manager. And the functions are still pretty much the same, it's just that it looks different. And I think, as I read somewhere, if you are comfortable with using the legacy version, then use that. Frankly, I'd rather use the latest and greatest, but that's just my 2 cents worth. Anyway, this is the new File Manager, new as in like the last 4 or 5 years old, because they haven't gone through many changes since then as far as File Manager is concerned. But inside the File Manager, this is your server. This is the files on your server. And you can create a new file, you can create a new folder, you can copy from within, you can move a file, you can upload or download, you can select one and delete it. As a matter of fact, this is how I do my backups, or one way in which I would do my backups, is I would select everything in here by selecting the top guy and then hold the shift key down on my keyboard and then selecting the bottom guy, or come up here and click on select all. Then once all the files are selected that I want to do a backup of, I click on compress. Then it's going to make sure that I want to do this. I can choose what type of compression I want to use, whether it's zip, tar, gzip, or whatever, and then click on compressed file. Then it's going to do whatever I ask it to do here, and it will, let me go and cancel this, then it's going to put that compressed or zip file on my server. I can then download that, so I've got my backup of everything on here as it is. Then I can simply upload that zip file, decompress it or extract it, and boom, I've got my files restored. But that's the makings of a different video. So once you've got a particular file or folder selected here, you've got other options to choose from, where you can either rename it, you can edit it, you can use code editor or HTML editor, you can change permissions so that certain people can do certain things or they cannot do certain things. And that's a quick rundown of the File Manager. And again, you can do pretty much the same thing with the File Manager Legacy. It just looks a little different. Disk space usage, just pretty much like it sounds, it gives you a graphical view of the amount of space that's being used on your server. And like it says here, it may not be exactly what is being used on your server. So just be aware of that in case you're really counting your bytes and kilobytes. And again, that's the disk space usage. We come on back home here. And under web disk, this allows you to do pretty much the same thing as you can with the file manager or file manager legacy, only in this case, once this is set up properly, you can do the same thing only on your desktop. This is basically a desktop application that allows you to manipulate, create, upload, download, delete files that are on your server, only doing so without the use of a file manager. You're doing it all on your computer's desktop. Pretty much the same thing you can do with an FTP client, kind of, sort of. And you've got the video tutorial here to kind of walk you through the process of setting this up. Now, in some cases with Windows, I believe Vista 7 and 8, you may have to adjust your firewall to make this work properly. So just be aware, if it doesn't work the first time, actually if it doesn't work the second time around, then you may want to adjust your firewall to get it to work properly. And that's your web disk setup. FTP accounts and FTP session control. These are, again, a way in which you can manipulate or add to or delete from the files that are on your server. Only this way you're using a third-party piece of software like FileZilla, QtFTP, or something like that. And if we open this up, here's where you can create FTP accounts. Now, by default, you've already got one that was pretty much set up for you by your web hosting company in the very beginning. Here you can create additional FTP accounts. For example, if you have somebody that you've hired to do some work on your website, you can give them limited access to particular folders or directories on your website so that they do not have access anywhere else on your server, just that particular folder or file. Or you can give them full access, totally up to you. But this is how you can give them some access, be it limited or unlimited. And you just give them a name, probably just put in their name here, and that would be their username. It would be whatever name you put in here, the @ symbol, and then your domain name, the password. Again, you want to jot this down somewhere because they're going to need it to log into their FTP account. And then this will automatically create a directory here, and you can change that to whatever directory you want to give them access to. And you can give them unlimited or put in some type of a limitation on the amount of files they can have access to. In other words, if you don't want them to be uploading mega-sized video files, then you want to put some kind of a limitation on here. And then you just click on Create FTP Account. Once it's created, then you have other options down here that you can work with from that point on. And if you do that, then you may want to also keep tabs on them by seeing the FTP session control here. And we don't have any others created in here aside from the default. But if you did, then you can see that individual, where they logged in from, the amount of time they spent on there, and when they disconnected, all kinds of cool stuff. Again, if you want to keep tabs on the person that you hired out to do some work for you. And that is a look at the Files panel or Files module on your cPanel control panel. Thank you very much for watching, and you have a great day.